Next up is I want to apply some animation to the home page, and I want to do this to give the home page a nicer look when it loads, but also the images on our topic tiles might take a moment to appear. So if we mask that with a bit of animation that fades in these images, we won't notice these images if they take a second to appear on screen. So it'll just have a nicer effect. So let's create some animation. So in our lib, I'm going to create a new directory and we'll name this animations. Then I'll create a new Dart file and I'll name this fade in animation. I'll create a new stateful widget, fade in animation, import material. Okay, so this animation is going to wrap around any object that we pass in and then animate that widget. So we need to pass in the widget. So I'll create a widget, I'll name this child, and then this must be passed in, required this.child. Okay, cool. And now down here in the state class, let's create the animation. So first of all, we need an animation controller. I'll use the late keyword. We'll initialize this in the init state. And when we're using an animation controller, we should mix in a ticker. So here I'll select a single ticker provider state mixin because we'll just have one animation controller. Let's set up the init state. Okay, so we have our init state. So we've got animation controller. Here we'll initialize the animation controller. To sync the animation controller up with our ticker we just created, we'll use the vsync this. And now let's apply a duration. We'll say 800 milliseconds. Okay, and also we should dispose of the animation controller. So I'll use the dispose method here and animation controller.dispose. So the animation effect we want to create is we want the image to scale in and also to fade in. So we want two animations happening. So let's create some animation objects. These will both be of type double. We'll name the first one scale animation, and we'll name the second one opacity animation. Now let's initialize these. Let's look at the scale one first. Scale animation, and we'll set this to a tween. So here we have a begin. So we don't want to make this too obvious, so something like 0.9. And then the end value will be the original size. Return an animation object. We'll use the .animate method, and here I'll pass in curved animation. So let's drive this with our animation controller, pass that in, and here we can also apply a curve. So by using the curved animation, we can apply a curve. So curves dot, and we'll select ease in out sign to make it nice and subtle. Okay, so that's our scale animation. Now let's also create our opacity animation. Again, we'll set this to a tween, which is of type double. We'll make this 0.5, and we'll have the end value again at 1. And we can just copy this here and paste this here. Okay, so we have a scale animation and an opacity animation. And then down here, we can build the animation. So to do that, I'll use transform. And then I will pass in matrix4 dot identity, which will allow us to transform the widget. and I'll go ... and select scale. So here we can use the scale method to transform the widget, and we'll just write in scale animation.value. All right, cool. So we have a scale animation. Now we also need to wrap this in a animation builder for it to animate. So I'll wrap this in an animated builder. This has an animation, and I'll pass in the animation controller. And the child should be replaced with a builder. Okay, and the second animation we want to apply that will run at the same time is the opacity. So let's just wrap the transform with an opacity widget. And here we can use the opacity property and pass in opacity animation dot value. Okay, cool. So we have two different types of animation effects. We'll have an opacity and a scale, and all of this is wrapped in our animated builder. And the last thing we need to do is kickstart the animation. So in our init state, we'll run animation controller dot forward, which will start the animation and run it from 0 to 1 over the duration of 800 milliseconds. All right, awesome. I'm going to press Ctrl-Alt-L, just format that, and let's add the const modifier here. All right, cool. So now that we have our animation class set up, let's apply it. I'll go to homepage, and first let's wrap the dragon. So this is really easy to apply. Type in fade in animation, and voila, we have applied it. So we can apply it everywhere we want. Let's test it out first on the dragon. And it's not working, and that is because we need to add in the child here. So we'll access that by writing widget.child. So that child is the widget that we passed into the stateful widget. So to access it down here in the state class, we'll type widget.child, and now hopefully this will work. Hot restart. Cool. Let's look at that one more time. Cool, so there's a subtle fade in. Now, one thing that we should update is the alignment. So it's sort of coming in from the top left and fading into the center. Let's have that fade in from the center. So in transform, I'll select alignment, alignment.center. Let's look at that again. Perfect. Okay, so that's what we want. Now let's also apply this to the title. So we'll come up here where we've got our title, and we can just wrap that with our fade in animation. And also let's apply it to each of these topic cards. So we'll go to components, topic tile, wrap with an animation, fade in animation. Now let's see how that looks. Cool. So we have a slight fade in. Okay, cool. So the basic outline of our home page is done. Let's just format the home page a little bit. I'll press Ctrl-Alt-L, get the formatting looking a bit nicer. Right click, add const modifiers everywhere in the file. Don't need one here if we have one up there. And cool, so our home page is looking pretty good. We do a hot restart. Things are going to have a subtle animation when they come in. We can now click on these different topics. So tile, tap, beach, birds, body, and so on. We also have a button that will take us to a settings page and a review page. Now next up, let's actually build the game page for the app, where we can self-test ourselves against all these different flashcards.